What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of No Risk, No Risk. Today we're looking at something that happened in the UK Parliament, which was quite epic, quite historic, and something that was frankly very, very needed.
Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, if I decide to wear a turban, or you decide to wear a cross, or he decides to wear a kippah or a skull cap, or she decides to wear a hijab or a burqa, does that mean that it is open season for right honourable members of this House to make derogatory and divisive remarks about our appearance? For those of us who from a young age have had to endure and face up to being called names such as Towelhead or Taliban, or coming from Bongo land, we can appreciate full well the hurt and pain felt by already vulnerable Muslim women when they are described as looking like bank robbers and letterboxes.
Hey, what the hell did you just say to Boris, eh?
So rather than hide behind sham and whitewash investigations, when will the Prime Minister finally apologise for his derogatory and racist remarks? Racist remarks, Mr. Speaker, which have led to a spike in hate crime. And given the increasing prevalence of such incidents within his party, when will the Prime Minister finally order an inquiry into Islamophobia within the Conservative Party, something which he and his Chancellor promised on national television?
Do you agree, guys? Should we have an external investigation of the Conservative Party into Islamophobia? So they all agree. Rory, agree? Excellent, they agree.
So if you don't know what Tan Singh Dhesi here is referring to, he's talking about the article that Boris Johnson wrote where he said,
Boris Johnson describing women who wear burqas as looking like letterboxes and bank robbers.
yes, that's right, our unelected leader of the United Kingdom called women who choose to wear burqas letterboxes. Tan Dhesi here is saying, look, Muslim women are already vulnerable even if they wear the hijab, if they wear the burqa. You're now throwing all these terms all over it, which has caused an increase in hate crimes because you're allowing it to happen. You're making it okay to say these terms. So he's saying, when are you going to apologise and set an example for the country that you lead that these terms are not acceptable? He's referring back to his own experiences of being called the Towelhead and Taliban. And what's interesting about Taliban is it's happened post 9/11 because the Taliban were the boogeyman that was created by the Western media, and they were brown and they had beards and they were wearing turban style things. So because he fits that description, automatically he's become Muslim and he's become part of that hate as well. So what's interesting here is that Islamophobia doesn't actually only affect Muslims, it also affects Sikhs because they have religious clothing as part of their normal everyday wear and as part of their identity. So they actually fall victim to Islamophobia just like Muslims do.
Well, some members of the British community are suffering the consequences of ignorance and mistaken identity, finding themselves victims of Islamophobia.
He said, you heard me. I told you lot all need to back to Pakistan. This is the UK. You shouldn't belong here. You need to back to Pakistan.
There are some 450,000 Sikhs in the UK, and most have lived in Britain for decades. And yet an RT investigation has found that UK Sikhs are increasingly being subjected to mistaken identity Islamophobic attacks. Last month, vandals sprayed, quote, white power and anti-Muslim slogans on a Sikh temple in Yorkshire, and Glasgow's Sikh temple fell victim earlier this year.
Somebody anti-Muslim put the slogan there, IS.
Islamophobia prevalent within the United Kingdom, prevalent within the US, prevalent within the West because of what's happened on the war on terrorism. The war on terrorism was actually a war on Muslims. And what's happened is now everyone who looks like a Muslim, who wants to dress like a Muslim, has any association, affiliation with being a Muslim, is now the enemy.
Run for it, Marty! Who? Who do you think? The Libyans! Holy
And as we're kind of coming out of that war on terrorism, as things are winding down, now this is when we are able to talk about these things. What you have to realize is that it's been very difficult for Muslims or people of ethnic minority backgrounds to actually speak up and talk about these things. The easiest way to go was to fit in, and that's kind of what Sajid Javid did. He just decided, hey,
मेरी उर्दू थोड़ी कमजोर है.
I like being rich. So I'm gonna just be rich and sell my ethnicity and sell my soul and sell my faith and sell everything down the river because I like being rich and I want to be Prime Minister one day.
मेरी उर्दू थोड़ी कमजोर है.
What's also interesting is the fact that Tan Desi is really showing the fact that as a Prime Minister, as a leader, being a politician in this democratic society means that you can say what you want, but you don't have to follow through with it.
Do you all agree, guys? Should we have an external investigation of the Conservative Party into Islamophobia? But they all agree. Boris, agree? Excellent, they agree.
And it's a bit like Conor McGregor and Khabib. Now, Conor McGregor talked a hell of a lot of crap all the way up to the fight. He was abusive to Khabib, said derogatory things about his religion. He was being Islamophobic towards Khabib.
The Chechen people know what I'm talking about when I call this man a coward. When I called his father a quivering coward. But Khabib's father, lick arse oh fucking Houlihan.
He was offering him alcohol when he knows that Khabib doesn't drink alcohol.
I go like, yeah, join the bus. Happy birthday, like, join the bus.
I don't drink.
Why don't you drink?
I don't drink.
Why don't you drink?
I never drink.
I'll tell you some buzz at parties.
I never drink.
You mad You're dead when I get my hands on you, do you hear me?
I never.
Dead.
I never drink.
I'll drink it. Me and the Irish Boston animal, Dana White, the OG of the fight game. He'll sup this bad boy.
I think it's gonna be a long night for him.
Yes!
He threw a dolly into the window of Khabib's coach, making one of his teammates bleed.
You alright, Mike? Yeah.
And nothing happened to Conor. Now, when Khabib was kicking the crap out of Conor in the octagon, in the ring,
Let's go now.
Inside the cage, give him elbow.
Oh! Conor's getting lit up.
Conor hasn't had an answer at all for the.
All Conor said was, "It's just business."
15 minutes in the books. We head to the championship rounds.
Grabbing. Let's go. What did Khabib just say?
And when Khabib made Conor tap out,
full mount, back mount.
There's the choke.
He's got it. It's under the neck.
There's the tap. Still undisputed.
His teammates who were outside the octagon were giving it the large, saying, "Come on, let's fight."
Screaming at Conor McGregor's jiu-jitsu coach.
And guess what? Khabib actually went out and did it, and he actually fought him.
Oh, no.
This is gonna stain.
And what happened was Khabib got in trouble. Khabib got suspended. Khabib got his belt taken away from him. Khabib got fined. So you can see here in this society, you can say what you want. You don't have to go through with it. And if you challenge, then all that happens is you get the push back onto you. But let's see what Boris has to say anyway.
Mr. Speaker, now, can I just say to the honourable gentleman that if he took the trouble to read the article in question, he would see that it was a strong liberal defence, as he began his question by saying, of everybody's right to wear whatever they want in this country. And I speak as somebody who is not only proud to have Muslim ancestors, but to be related to Sikhs such as himself.
Okay. Did Boris just basically say that he's not racist because he's got a black friend? That's basically what he's saying. He's saying, hey, I've got Muslim ancestors and I've got Sikh people in my family.
How can I be racist?
That was probably one of my favorite moments in TV. And he was like, you say the Trumps are racist, but look at their black friend. Look at her, that black friend.
And I'm also proud, Mr. Speaker, to say that under this government, we have the most diverse cabinet in the history of this country.
How dare you say that I'm racist? I have black nieces and nephews.
And we truly reflect modern Britain. We truly reflect modern Britain.
मेरी उर्दू थोड़ी कमजोर है.
Yes, Sajid Javid and Boris Johnson truly reflect modern Britain.
And Mr. Speaker, what we have yet to hear from anywhere in the Labour Party is any hint of apology for the virus of anti-Semitism that is now rampant in their ranks. And I would like to hear that from the honourable member opposite.
Okay, so that is like a 5-year-old. He's like a 5-year-old, okay? What world are we living in where Trump is president and Boris Johnson is prime minister? They're both like 5-year-olds. He's saying, hey, that article, I was saying that, you know, if people want to look like letterboxes, they should just do it. So, you know, I'm backing them. You know, I'm backing them. If they want to look like letterboxes, lead them to it. And Boris is saying that him saying it in that way, what's wrong with it? You know, he said, I stand by my comments, and that's all he ever says. And he thinks that that's acceptable.
Some of your comments because sometimes that there is an element. Apologise for calling, describing women wearing bugs as bank robbers and letterboxes. You're now under investigation. Will you apologise for that, or do you think that was okay?
As I say, I stand by what I wrote.
He then moves on and then he starts talking about anti-Semitism and he says, hey,
don't talk to me about diversity. We got the most diverse, right? We're the most diverse people, okay?
And again, you got Sajid Javid on his right. Mr. Token himself. Mr. Token, he's that guy that everyone will say, hey, we got a Muslim. Yeah, we got one. We got a Muslim. And he moves on and he starts talking about, hey, but listen, now that's me sorted, right? They want to look like letterboxes, they can look like letterboxes. We got Sajid over here. He's a good brown mate, all right? He's a good Muslim, he is, right? He drinks, he don't pray, right? He don't have no beard, right? He's a good lad, he is. He's good muzzy, right? He's good muzzy, he is.
My name is Sajid Javid. I live between Bromsgrove and London with my wife and 4 children.
Don't forget samosas! Okay, Daddy. But listen, mate, you need to tell me why you support Palestine. I mean, sorry, you need to tell me why you're anti-Semitic.
And really, that's the same thing. If you support Palestine, you are therefore anti-Semitic. That is the rhetoric. That is what all Muslims, and actually what so many Jewish people around the world also say as well. Anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism are not the same thing. If you are anti-Israel, it doesn't mean that you are anti-Jewish. These two things are completely different, and that's what we need to separate. Boris Johnson here is again showing where his loyalties lie, showing what his priorities are by saying and calling out pro-Palestinian sentiments as anti-Semitism, just throwing that hatred in there, just throwing that shade onto the Labour government once again. It's a shame that this is the Prime Minister, that this is the way that he leads our country. It's all a sham. It's an absolute scandal. This is meant to be a democracy. And what does that even mean? Who voted for this guy? Not any one of us voted for this guy. That's not a democracy. I don't know what planet you lot are living on, but that's not a democracy to me. So if you call this democracy, you think that this is the pinnacle and the example of democracy, then what happens if this happens in the rest of the world? You would be going crazy. So I think first of all, shout out to Tan Singh Dhesi once again, local MP for Slough. I think it was a brilliant speech on his part. That's what Parliament is about. It's about giving passionate speeches. He gave a very passionate speech. He raised some very excellent points here. He was talking about some very prevalent things that you and I and other people of colour have experienced living in this country, especially those who have grown up post 9/11, but you know, even those who have grown up in the 60s, 70s and 80s where they felt the Paki bashing. It's just something that is part of this country, part of this society. And now that as this country grows and becomes more multicultural, these things need to stop. He's just brought that to the surface to start the conversation. Islamophobia, again, he brought up the conversation. What's sad is the fact that we have Muslims in Parliament who don't talk about this. And one thing that, you know, has been very consistent within the Sikh community, that from what I can see, is they are people that like to speak the truth rather than speaking the truth when it suits them. Shout out to Tan Singh Dhesi, shout out to the Sikh community who really do try to break down these barriers of cultural differences, etc. Yeah, you guys have got my respect and love. So anyways, guys, hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure that you give Tan Singh Dhesi a big shout out on your social media platforms. Go follow him. I'll leave the link in the description below so you can go follow him on Instagram, and yeah, just tell him how much you appreciated that. I don't know him. I'm not affiliated with him in any way. I don't subscribe to the Labour Party or anything like that. I just think that when someone talks like this in Parliament so truthfully, it's a rare occasion and we need to celebrate it, and we need to push it, and we need to promote it, and we need to get the answers from the people that are being asked the questions.
मेरी उर्दू थोड़ी कमजोर है